The alarm lights pulsed in red across the chamber, washing the pristine walls of the Galactic Council Hall in an eerie, blood-colored glow. Dozens of species, each more bizarre and ancient than the last, stood frozen in place. Their gill plates, eye stalks, neural tendrils, or whatever form of sensory organs they possessed, locked on the central galactic display. For the first time in over 10,000 cycles, the council, normally a swirling sea of diplomatic chatter and posturing, had fallen completely and utterly silent because the impossible was happening. The Zervok Armada, the oldest and most dangerous empire that still roamed the voids of the outer spiral, had launched a full-scale incursion, and their target wasn't a developed council world. It wasn't a resource-rich colony or a strategically vital wormhole. No dot, it was Earth. Yes, that Earth. The quiet backwater Class 4 civilization on the spiral rim. Humanity, the species most of the council delegates barely regarded as more than a footnote in cosmic affairs. A primitive, bickering race, still reeling from their own infighting and fresh into interstellar awareness. They'd only just achieved faster-than-light travel. They hadn't even joined the council, barely even monitored. Not even warned of what was out there. And now, out of all possibilities, they were under attack. The feed on the central display flickered as Zervok dreadships, black as a collapsed star, formed their vanguard. Weapons hot, shields pulsing, a swarm of millions, their intent unmistakable. They weren't coming to negotiate. They weren't coming to conquer and enslave. They were coming to annihilate. One council member, a translucent being of gas, rippled in horrified disbelief. Why would the Zervok waste their fleets on a planet of primitives? It whispered, "They're human," another rasped. That might be why. In the outer ring of the hall, a Terran observer, one of only 2 humans ever granted partial diplomatic clearance, stood stone-faced, fists clenched. His jacket still bore the dirt of earth brown, beaten leather, patched and scorched. He wore no armor, carried no weapon, but there was something different in his gaze. Not fear, not rage. It was quiet. It was calculation. I knew something was wrong, he muttered, voice barely audible. The Zervok, they were watching us, testing, probing for years. A third council delegate, a towering crystalline being from Kezer Prime, tilted its upper segments in confusion. Your species is not a threat. Your culture barely stabilized nuclear equilibrium. Your planetary defense network is laughable. The human's lips curled ever so slightly, but it wasn't a smile. More like memory. You think we're weak, he said almost gently, because we rarely speak. Because we're young. Because we haven't shown you what we're capable of. His eyes flicked to the swirling Zervok fleet as it closed in toward Earth's orbit. You're not the first to underestimate us. Somewhere deep beneath, the Earth's surface, sealed away from public knowledge, hidden from alien scanners and buried behind 10 layers of political denial, something old began to stir. Human military commands scrambled across the globe. Political factions dropped their squabbles. Civilizations, fractured by borders, suddenly moved as one. This wasn't a war they started, but it would be one they finished. And far above, an orbital lowlight where satellites die and secrets live, Earth's defense grid, long rumored and long denied, began awakening. We should intervene, a voice boomed in the council hall, loaded with regret. A being wreathed in electromagnetic fields pulsed as it spoke. If we allow the Zervok to strike without action, Earth will be exterminated. It will send a message. Not just to other emerging species, but to us. They are not a council world, another being snapped. We are forbidden from participating in inter-extraterritorial conflicts unless a charter signatory requests aid. Earth never signed. They do not even know the charter exists. Then we get them to sign, Fast, too late. Above Earth, the first beams of Zervok hellfire burst outward, entire fleets vomiting plasma. The strike patterns were ruthless, calculated. They weren't meant to test defenses. They were meant to turn the planet into radioactive dust before Earth could even react. The human's jaw flexed. He turned to the council. You've been watching us like we're insects, experiments, entertainment. But let me tell you something. We're not the ones being hunted. He stepped closer to the holofeed, now flickering with the first stages of Earth's response scrambled flight paths, hidden orbital cannons powering up, kinetic shields activating in layers that no spacefaring species thought Earth even had. We are human, and we fought extinction before. The feed zoomed in. A spectral sweep caught something unexpected. Dozens. No, hundreds of unidentified objects rising from Earth's oceans, deserts, and mountain ranges. They had no council registration, no Zervok analogs. They bore no flags, no insignia, but they screamed of preparation, contingency, design. The humans smiled this time, teeth showing. We knew this day would come. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Predictive AI models failed to account for the sudden appearance of Terran space-burn dreadnoughts. Earth's total military capability had been wildly underestimated. Worse, it appeared they'd developed technologies never before seen. Fusion beam turrets with impossible reload times, gravitic distortion launchers, hull plating that glowed with reactive counterphoton scalars, something even the Kaiser couldn't replicate. Still, the Zervok pressed forward, unrelenting. They had numbers, ship mass, speed, thousands against a few hundred impromptu Earth ships assembling like misfit puzzle pieces. But even with the odds, something felt off. The radio silence ended. A global Earth transmission flared open. No fanfare, no pleasantries, no desperation, just one voice, calm and clear and cutting through the void. This is Earth Defense Command. You crossed the line. Immediately after, 20 Zervok capital ships vanished from existence, not destroyed. Erased as if reality itself had recoiled. Vapor exploded in their place, but no debris followed. Whatever weapon the humans had used, it didn't just kill. It ended. Back in the council hall, dozens of delegates turned, simultaneously understanding the same terrible truth. Earth hadn't been evolving. It had been preparing. A council member choked. They hid from our sensors. For centuries. We thought they were still primitive. She told you, the human whispered. Those probes you ignored? The warnings you brushed off? Those weren't cries for help. Those were tests. Tests of what? The human's eyes were locked on the feed. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't in our ships or tech. He paused. It's in what we do when our backs are against the wall. With a sudden shriek of subspace interference, Earth's fleet surged into coordinated patterns with surgical precision. Each warship moved like part of a unified organism, not separate vessels. I assisted. Human commanded. No hesitation. Something stirred in council members. Fear. Not of the Zervok, but of the humans, because now they were watching something unstoppable awaken. It wasn't Earth's technology that terrified them. It was Earth's resolve. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the keepers of cosmic peace, the rulers of the galactic order, could only watch ... as something ancient and furious roared to life from the heart of that small blue planet on the spiral's edge. A primal fire, a refusal to die. And somewhere behind the veil of laser storms and shattered battle carriers, a single human ship broke through the Zervok. Lines headed straight for the mothership. No one on the council said a word. Not when the feed cut out. Not when the stars over Earth turned red. Not even when. The human in the chamber turned slowly toward them and whispered, "You should have listened." Then the lights went out. Silence held the Galactic Council chamber like a noose around the neck, normally filled with the hum of conversation, layered translations, and the soft click of legislative interfaces. Now, there was only that awful, unnatural stillness. Even the oxygen circulators seemed to whine quieter, as if the hall itself was holding its breath. The lights hadn't gone out completely. Emergency backup systems kicked in, casting everything in a pale, sickly blue. Figures shifted in the gloom, alien silhouettes, each representing civilizations that had ruled stars and shaped empires, but none dared speak. Not yet. The human didn't move either. He stood near the central holofeed deck, arms at his sides, gaze locked on the inert image where Earth had just been. But there was no signal now, just static, dust dancing in the beamlight, and still. That last word lingered in the room like a storm cloud. You should have listened. The tension cracked when a tall, vine-wrapped counselor surged forward, thumping a clawed appendage on the console. Bring it back. Restore the feed. Now. One of the technicians scrambled, fronds twitching as he jabbed at the controls. They're blocking remote scans, he gasped. Earth has gone completely dark on all observational frequencies. Spectrum interference across the entire sector. I've never seen anything like this. They blocked us out, a voice muttered from the back row. They blocked us all out. They shouldn't have that capability, another delegate hissed. They were at Class 4. That's no more advanced than mechanical plasma drives and decaying fission weapons. They're not anymore, came the dry reply. Everyone turned again to the human observer. He didn't look back. His eyes still watched the dead feed, unmoving. Like he'd been here before. They kept pretending, he said quietly. Pretending to struggle. Pretending to fall apart. You all thought the chaos on Earth made us weak. The wars, the politics, the division. He shook his head slowly. It was a shell. On purpose. But why? A senior Devari counselor stammered, translucent wings twitching with stress. Why would your species hide their progress? Why not apply for council membership? Or alert the coalition to the Zervok threat? The man finally turned, and something about his expression made more than a few creature delegates unconsciously lean back. Because we didn't trust you. The words weren't said with venom, just honesty. And that landed harder. You claim to preserve peace, he continued. But when new species reach the stars, what happens? You fold them into bureaucracy. Hand them a seat, a flag pin, and a stack of promises. But when something actually threatens galactic existence, he let the silence answer. You do nothing. That's not true, really. He pointed to the hollow, still casting static. The Zervok attacked civilian planets for centuries. You issued warnings, sanctions, strong denouncements. That didn't stop them. It never stopped them. He stepped forward. So we learned. We watched. We asked ourselves, what happens when no one comes to help? No one interrupted this time. We built in secret, he said. Underground. In orbit. Beneath the oceans. Not because we wanted to strike first, but to be sure when the day came that we'd be ready to strike back. For the first time, some of the delegates didn't just look concerned, they looked afraid. Beneath the galaxy's crust of alliances, treaties, and political theater, they'd all grown comfortable. Earth was supposed to be a footnote, a struggling species with violent history and cultural fragmentation, nothing more than a curiosity at best. Not the kind of world that would develop reality-folding weaponry or anti-detection tech no one else could even detect, let alone counter, and yet, here they were, a civilization younger than 300. Galactic cycles had just told the most ancient powers in existence, "We're not who you thought we were," the human exhaled, rubbing the edge of a scar near his eye. "We never asked to be monitored. Not by you. Not by the Zervok. Yet your sensors never stop spying. Your surveys, your probes, your games. All of you lumped us in with every other species who begged for inclusion. You didn't see our silence as strategy. He glanced around the chamber. You thought it was weakness. On the other side of the galaxy, beyond the reach of the Council's vision, but not beyond its fears, Earth stood, under shadow. Skies had turned from blue to crimson. The Zervok fleet hadn't stopped their assault. But something had changed. Their formations were broken, unnatural, a confusion rippling through them. Planetary records scratched through distortions. Satellites disrupted and dropped like stones, and those Terran ships, those hulking, black-edged vessels with no markings, no identity codes, kept firing in silence. Their weapons bending light around them, orbiting their victims with eerie precision before slicing them from space. Some didn't use weapons at all. They touched Zervok vessels. And when they did, those ships simply ceased to exist. Like they'd been disconnected from reality. No escape pods. No debris. Not even heat signatures. Nothing. No council technology causes that sort of decay. A trembling voice offered in the chamber. This is something else. Some kind of a void tech. The others exchanged worried glances. Void manipulation was theoretical something scrawled and speculative. Research by species with 10,000-year-old spaceflight histories. Dangerous, unstable, not meant to be pursued. Let alone perfected, yet Earth has it. They're quantum repeaters, one of the analysts stuttered. They're echoing off systems we don't control. Subnet echoes from dead stars. That implies... He swallowed hard. That implies they've been building across systems we don't even monitor. Colonies. Testing grounds. God help us, they've expanded. Back in the hall, one of the Kezer leaned close to his communication array. Initiate emergency Senate protocol. Alert all primary members. Set condition fracture. A silence followed. Condition fracture, someone whispered. We've never declared that. Not even during the Varkan rebellions. This isn't the Varkan, came the quiet response. This is worse. The human exhaled again and finally took a seat, folding his hands. We spotted the Zervok 40 years ago, carefully rising in strength again. Quiet, subtle, rearming in stolen sectors no one seemed to care about. He looked across the table at the elder counselors, his tone harder now. You watched and waited. We didn't. A glitch flickered across the feed, a moment of static resolve, a blurred, distant image of Earth's atmosphere opened for a half-second. Enough to see the outline of a figure descending from orbit. Not a Zervok. A human. No suit. No armor. Alone. Impact trajectory suggested atmospheric re-entry unaided. When questioned later, no one could explain how. Or why. What is that? A delegate whispered. Deliverance, the human observer murmured. We call them the Faultborn. The term cracked like thunder across the hall. That's not a name Earth's public knows. One of the analysts says slowly, pale skin blanching. That's a black tier classification? Correct. What are the odds of council civilization exposure? You're already exposed, the human said flatly. You just haven't admitted it yet. One of the council speakers leaned forward, gathering what nerve they could. If your species truly has these capabilities, why did you never announce yourselves? Or try to lead? You allowed suffering on other worlds. You let the Zervok prey on the weak? We were the weak ones, he replied. No one answered our calls. We've been alone since we looked at the stars. His gaze hardened. We don't want to lead your council. We don't want your charters or ceremonies. He tapped the console once. We just want to finish the job. And with that, he stood up. No guard stopped him. No alarms triggered. Just like Earth's defenses, humanity's presence had gone unnoticed until it was too late to do anything about it. As the door slid shut behind him, the feed flickered once more grainy now, like an old video replayed from a memory too broken to repair. And the static blipped, an image burned into history forever. A Zervok dreadship kilometers long, shielded in obsidian alloys, once thought invincible, ripping in half in total silence. Not from weapons fire, not from collision. As if space had revolted. As if Earth had said, enough, and somewhere deep in lost frequencies, radio waves pulsed an ancient human phrase, not heard since the early 21st century. Simple. Spoken in every tongue on Earth. All at once. Asterisk, asterisk, we're coming. Asterisk, asterisk, but who we was. No one in the chamber could say in the horrifying part. They all suspected it wasn't just humans anymore. Orbiting just above what was once considered the quarantine zone around Earth, the last Zervok fleet cluster held position, hesitating. From the outside, it looked like a show of force-bladed ships aligned in sharp formation, surrounded by clouds of escort drones. But from within, the atmosphere was different. Something had gone wrong. Very wrong. On the Zervok command bridge, deep within a cathedral-like dreadship, their high warlord clicked his mandibles in frustration. His crew was jittery, systems stalling for no visible reason. Tactical readouts distorted, sensors twisted. Every attempt to scan Earth's surface returned only one line of corrupted date, an ominous line of code. Asterisk, asterisk, observer error, signal not recognized. Asterisk, asterisk, that wasn't a warning. That was a message. Their target wasn't malfunctioning. It was speaking back inside the Galactic Council chamber. The feed from Earth remained down, though flickers of interference still pulsed across the walls, fragments of urgency buried beneath static. The primary human observer hadn't returned. In his place, records began auto-uploading transcripts decrypted. Long-hidden Terran communications, files tagged Omega Red across multiple databases. The titles were simple, brutal, awakening protocols. Civilization continuity, peripheral colonies and tactical field testing. Asterisk failsafe directive. Exoterminus asterisk. It wasn't just Earth that the humans had fortified. The real conflict had started long before the first Zervok ship entered there. System. And now it was becoming clear the battlefield wasn't limited to human space. One of the younger council observers leaned forward, rapidly decoding glitch signal bursts from the galaxy's outer rim. We're getting movement in Delta 3 sector. 24 systems lighting up at once. Dead colonies. Abandoned facilities. Even ones we thought were destroyed by solar collapses. They're reactivating. How? Another snapped. Those were labeled lost centuries ago. Because someone filed them that way, an older voice answered grimly. Or made sure they looked lost. Dozens of species were now realizing the same horrifying truth. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They had been seeding the galaxy in the background. Discreetly, carefully, like a virus hidden in open air, and no one had noticed. Not once. Somewhere in the deeper void, past the edges of the Zervok swarm, a transmission burst into the dark. Not from Earth, not from the Council, not even from the remaining human fleet. It was a civilian signal. A transport ship from a forgotten Terran colony on Titan's edge. Barely armed, lightly shielded, packed with terrified scientists and families trying to escape the spreading fire. The voice on the channel was shaky, but determined. To anyone receiving, "This is the colony vessel North Spring. We've just left orbit. Zervok drones. Everywhere. They're not responding to normal military targets anymore. We think they're tracking life signatures." Then silence, then screaming. Distant filtered through bulkheads and compression codecs. A short pause, then a final whisper. "Tell them Earth didn't start this. But we'll end it." The line cut. Another signal silenced. Another trail burned, back in the council hall. That last whisper echoed through the chamber like prophecy. Are we sure they're still human? Came the question quietly, spoken in a voice afraid to be loud. Maybe they changed, evolved, became something else. They're still human, a voice confirmed from the side. It was the second Terran observer, no longer standing in the shadows. Her expression carried the weight of someone who had seen too much, lived too many versions of the same war. She wasn't dressed like a diplomat. No robe, no translator shawl. She wore a flight jacket with visible weld marks and a faded Earth defense patch torn at one edge. They're human, she repeated. That's what should scare you. A few council members looked her way, too stunned to offer protocol or push her back into silence. You think because we bleed like you, that we break like you, that you've seen hardship, she said. But you've never seen what happens when a human decides to endure. Our stories, our history, it's written in war, in starvation, exile, betrayal. Our ancestors clawed out of extinction with sticks and rust. She looked at them, voice growing harder. You left us alone, thinking we'd crumble from within. But we didn't. We grew teeth. Across the stars, in hidden places even the Zervok didn't know about, humanity stirred. Abandoned way stations in deep space flared to life. Long-dead satellites spun again. Automated outposts once thought destroyed opened concealed hangars, revealing weapons, platforms dark enough to break light itself. It wasn't just Earth that had prepared Dot, it was systems far beyond, places humanity couldn't afford to lose even when their own governments had forgotten them. Foundry Beacon 6, buried under the crust of an asteroid in the Shar Belt, came online for the first time in 200 years. Its I Command program greeted the world with an oddly calm voice, asterisk, asterisk. Hello, humanity, shall we begin? Asterisk, asterisk, and through it all, the Zervok kept pounding their way forward, frustrated by shadows. Their dominance came from control intimidation, sheer firepower, but nothing they unleashed stopped the tide. For the first time, their opponents didn't scatter, they learned. Every ship destroyed bought time. Every dead pilot uploaded system telemetry to groundside command. Every autopsy of Zervok tech, every intercepted comm signal, was fed into live strategic AIs that adapted faster than they could evolve. The war was no longer fair dot, it was becoming human dot, even within Zervok leadership. Whispered doubt crept in. They're not reacting like prey, one of their strategists hissed. They're acting like apex predators waiting for the right moment. Earth wants us here, another snarled. This was a trap all along. They had thought Earth would fall in hours dot, it had been 4 days, and they were losing ground dot meanwhile in the council. Factions quietly began to fracture. Some argued Earth should be aided. Others claimed Earth was as much a threat now as the Zervok themselves. There's no difference between them anymore. An insectoid delegate shouted through the hall, spitting acidic pheromones into the air. Earth unleashes chaos just like the Zervok, only they smile while they do it. But not everyone agreed. They were left to fight alone, a quieter species murmured. Do you blame them for never trusting us again? Somewhere in the chaos of the outer sectors, another mystery began to take shape. Courier ships dispatched by neutral systems vanished not along battle lines, but in isolation. No Zervok presence. No sign of Earth involvement. Just gone. Then came the rumors ghost fleets. Unidentified vessels in ancient hull designs, but performing at impossible speeds. No emblems. No hail. Just passing silently across stars unmarked deadly every time a council scout encountered them. The results were the same brief contact interference spikes, and then systems fried beyond repair no trace left behind, whatever Earth had unleashed. It wasn't just warships and orbital cannons. Something darker moved behind the curtain, The woman in the council finally broke the growing silence. "You want to know what makes humans dangerous?" she asked the room. "It isn't our technology or weapons." She pointed to the darkest corner of the galaxy map. "It's that we'll walk into oblivion if it means someone else doesn't have to." She straightened. "You're watching one of those walks right now." Across council systems, panic started to grow. Refugee flotillas launched. Neutral species scrambled to flee the warpath. Some tried contacting Earth for treaties, deals, anything to avoid getting caught in the coming storm. But Earth didn't. Answer. Not yet, because Earth was still busy, bleeding, still fighting, still choosing who lived long enough to see the next sunrise. And somewhere just beyond the reach of any known signal, a single message blinked in a dead language from humanity's oldest satellite, relayed through a mirror probe placed centuries ago in the void. Between spiral arms. 8 words. Simple. Asterisk. They came for war. We came prepared. Asterisk. And war was just beginning. The Zervok High Warlord hadn't moved in 3 hours. His limbs had locked into a state of calculated paralysis, a posture his species only entered during existential analysis. As the last surviving command node of the Zervok Vanguard, his mind was stretched across thousands of fleet feeds, most of them silent now. Not destroyed. Not blocked. Gone. Unaccounted for. Erased like chalk from stone. Despite thousands of cycles of warfare and conquest, the Zervok had never encountered a species that responded this way. The standard patterns were broken. No communications begging for mercy, no attempts at surrender. No threats or cries of retaliation. Just silence, practiced precision, and something worse. Adaptation. The human resistance, if it could even be called that, was no longer reacting to the invasion like defenders. They didn't regroup and retaliate. They calculated and corrected. Vessels that were destroyed in the first wave had siblings deployed within hours with reconfigured armor, upgraded flame dispersion shielding, and even mirrored Zervok tight beam weapons. Improved. They were learning. Fast. Each battle was another version of humanity rewritten. The warlord's second in command flicked a tendril nervously. Vectors for fallback are prepared. We can regroup in the shadow of the arc mesh and re-enter through the Garn Rift. They won't follow us into... They will, the warlord said without turning. Don't ask me how. They will. Even alien fear has a shape. And for the first time, that shape was human. Back in the Galactic Council's core systems, debate had turned into desperation. Closed-door meetings filled with shouting and blame-laying had spilled out into the public multispheres. Information leaked, almost purposefully, fragments of Earth's weapon tests. Video loops of Zervok dreadnoughts turned to dust. And most chilling, a blurry image of a humanoid form stepping from a crashed escape pod wearing no armor, rising from the rubble as if gravity itself couldn't decide whether to hold them down. Is that a Faultborn? Someone whispered. I thought they weren't real. They weren't, until now. Rumors of these Faultborn had been classified myth before. A Terran sleeper project, supposedly aimed at creating hybrid operators, part soldier, part machine, part something else. The kind of black-budget existence common to paranoid empires. No confirmed sightings. Only traces. But those traces had teeth now. One council member, an ancient archivist from the Andal Depth libraries, had quietly sent a report upstream internal only. It carried no accusations, just the title, Signs of Preemptive Ascension and Human Strategic Doctrine, which, translated plainly, meant, asterisk, they planned for the end of everything. Just in case, asterisk, if anyone in the council still had doubts about the true scale of what was unfolding. Those doubts were buried when Earth's nearest moon stopped broadcasting any kind of signal. It didn't go offline. It went silent. Scanners passed right through it. No temperature. No signal bounce. It might as well have never existed. Ships were dispatched from distant edges to observe the anomaly. None returned. Rumors began that the moon wasn't a rock at all, but something Earth had grown hollow centuries ago. A shell, a lockbox. And perhaps now, something had opened from within it. Far from the Council's protected core and beyond what they could see. Something closer to the front lines waited, a rogue human ship. Designation Mercy's Knife had been lost just outside the combat zone 2 days prior. Registry showed no further movement. Crew presumed dead. But deep in Earth Command archives, a different entry existed. Asterisk, asterisk, Mercy's Knife, status. Recovered asterisk, 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 purpose, redeployment, infiltration, payload finalization, asterisk, asterisk. Inside what remained of it, a single cryopod unlocked with a hiss, eyes opened. Not confused. Not weak. Focused. There were stories whispered even among human soldiers about those pods, about operatives who weren't created to live long. Just long enough. People grown in war, stabilized through therapy loops, and flash-trained in hundreds of languages and kill programs. Weapons in the shape of men and women, and they only woke up when it mattered. Now. One of them was awake. He looked up at the shattered sky through the broken hull. Somewhere above, a dark swarm clogged Earth's orbit. Fire streaked through the clouds. Static danced in the atmosphere like lightning with no thunder. But the glow in his eyes remained focused. It's time, he said, and keyed the drop beacon. The final phase approached. Not through brute strength, but precision chaos. As the human fleets stabilized into coordinated assault vectors. Secondary fronts emerged across surprise locations, derelict council-held mining facilities, ancient ruins once dismissed as human exploration failures, and even now abandoned resurrection worlds used in failed terraforming experiments decades ago. Each one long catalogued. Each marked as faded footnotes, each one now lighting up with unexpected human IFF signatures. They hadn't been abandoned. They'd been watching. Digging. Preparing. The war wasn't just in orbit anymore. It was in tunnels, on forgotten moons, through lost relays. Everywhere the galaxy assumed the humans hadn't touched, there were footprints, bases, weapons, memories, and something more. Survivors. Human. Civilians with old uniforms and faded patches. Broadcast distress beacons from the rubble of old colonies' council. Records had once ruled uninhabitable. These same civilians were fighting Zervok squads in real time, repelling elite units and transmitting data that Earth's AI reef systems picked up instantly. They were fighting smarter. And the more they fought, the more Zervok morale cracked. Even their warlords began shifting tactics. Some stepped back, not to regroup, but to rethink. Because Earth's response stopped resembling organized warfare and started evolving into something alien-like. Every response was a mirror, a variation, an answer. Zervok's supply logistics collapsed after only 36 hours of disruption. Not from enemy fire, but from rogue frequencies emitting across their command channels. System access. Disruptions aligned with their fleet identification codes. Human encryption. The great Zervok data empire long thought impenetrable had been breached. How? No one knew. Theories spread. Maybe Earth had been inside their systems for years. Maybe those first surveys, decades ago, weren't harmless. Maybe Earth knew from the beginning what was coming, and maybe, just maybe, humanity had never planned to stop it. In the council hall, the logic snapped. This isn't a war anymore, one delegate finally said. It's an orchestration. They'd all thought humans were reacting. Not once had they considered the possibility that Earth had. wanted this confrontation, and now they were winning it, but not without cost. Back on Earth, the scars grew deeper. Cities in ruins, fires in the sky, civilian shelters protected by energy domes powered from generators half a world away. Entire oceans turned into sonar graves as underwater fleets fought beneath the waves, leaving debris that never surfaced. Every hour, Earth bled, but every hour, so did the ZURVOK. And not just in casualties. In belief. The sharp-edged certainty of their supremacist culture now corroded like rust in the face of stubborn, impossible resistance. Their species had never known defeat. Now, defeat was learning their name, and from orbit, through half-charred skies, the silhouette of a return carrier breached Earth's upper atmosphere. Black smoke bleeding behind it like a scar across the clouds. Inside that ship. Was the payload. The Council didn't know what it was. The Zervok feared it was a planet killer, but the humans? They called it the Quiet End. What it did, nobody could say. Only that it wasn't built to destroy. It was built for something worse. Truth. In 37 minutes. It would reach its final destination, Ground Zero, from where the first Zervok blast had struck. The place where Earth's retaliation had started. The coordinates were locked. Buried beneath layers of encryption was a broadcast frequency. A message. A single. Final signal the entire galaxy would hear. And no one, not the Zervok, not the Council, not the humans themselves, knew what would happen when it played. All anyone knew for certain, as the transmission countdown ticked lower. Was that everything would change. 37 minutes felt longer than any point in recorded galactic time. Across the stars, species listened. War paused, not because a treaty was signed, but because no one knew what would happen next. Earth's signal, hidden inside a quiet return carrier, had nearly reached its destination. All attempts to intercept or destroy it had failed. The Zervok had thrown everything they had at the carrier: fire, fracture bombs, subspace scramblers. Nothing worked. Like the ship wasn't just avoiding danger, like it wasn't part of reality anymore. Still, it came steady, silent. Back on Earth, the skies wept ash. Whole continents burned softly beneath gold-thick clouds. Some cities stood scarred and flickering. Others were gone, vanished into the past tense of old maps and lost names. And yet, Earth stood, shaky, bruised, but breathing. From the ground, civilians watched the black dot trail toward the horizon. They had no idea what it was, even many soldiers didn't, but stories moved faster than approval. Everyone had heard rumors of the Quiet End. Everyone had a version. Some claimed it was a revenge weapon, built to erase the Zervok down to the species level. Others believed it would send a message so powerful it would collapse Zervok culture itself. The most far-fetched theory, that it wasn't a weapon at all, but something meant for humans. Only high-level Earth Command knew the truth, and even they weren't completely sure. Inside the carrier, the operators stayed strapped in pale skin, dimly lit by shifting monitors. Hands resting on the trigger, not made of metal or circuit, but words. All of what Earth had hidden, all of what humanity had become, had built toward this moment. It wasn't about dominance. Not anymore. The war had proven Earth could survive, could win, could match the worst in the galaxy and still claw out a reason to keep going. That was never the real question. The real question was, asterisk after all the fire and pain, what would humanity say to the stars? Asterisk, the timer blinked. 0:10, the ship slowed. Just above the ruins of old Canberra, where the Zervok invasion had first landed. The place where millions had died. The place where Earth decided once and for all that it would play by no one's rules, but its 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 4 seconds. The council stations tuned in. still skeptical, still reeling from everything they'd learned. Some delegates had already fled. Others watched from refugee stasis bays, hoping they weren't about to witness the birth of a galactic tyrant. The Zervok command network collapsed into stillness. Not one of their surviving ships moved. What was coming was bigger than ordnance, bigger than war, and then the signal broadcast began. No explosions, no bright lights, just a voice, a human voice. A young one, calm, steady, clear. I am nobody, you know. Not a representative, not a soldier, just someone who lived through this. The voice belonged to a survivor, an engineer from one of the deep ice colonies. Thought lost. Presumed dead during the first wave, but not dead. Alive. And chosen. The message was simple, honest, streamed on every frequency. The galaxy could hear. You came for Earth because you believed we wouldn't fight back. You looked at our chaos, our mistakes, and thought it meant we couldn't organize, build, or rise. But what you didn't understand is that pain is our teacher. Fire is our crucible, and we don't evolve despite hardship. We evolve because of it. Static crackled softly. We didn't want this war, but you brought it to our door. And every world you burned, every life you ended, forged something inside us that isn't just anger. The voice paused, like it was choosing the next words carefully. It forged understanding across dozens of council worlds. Those who had feared this moment felt their tension shift, not disappear, but bend. Something in the voice wasn't vengeful. It was tired, aching, human. You feared what we might become, and now you've seen it. We became the thing we needed to survive, and now it's enough. Then the final line, short and heavy. The war ends now. For all of us. Or none of us. The signal cut, and just like that, it was done. No attack. No virus, no reality-bending weapon. Just words spoken plain to the galaxy that had doubted everything Earth was capable of. In the dead silence that followed, something changed. Zervok ships broke formation. One by one, they halted fire. Units shut down aggression cycles as command chains turned to static. First in orbit, then further out. Dreadnoughts drifted quietly, their crews, if still alive, confused, unsure. For a species bred for conquest, led by warlords and taught victory through domination. The message had been something central. It wasn't a command to surrender. It was worse. It was permission to stop fighting, and they didn't know what to do with it. Back in the council hall, the delegates sat as still as the Zervok, now drifting in quiet surrender. One of them finally spoke. I don't understand. That's all it took? No, someone else answered. That's all that was left. Humanity hadn't just won the war, they'd redefined it. Not in blood, not in territory gained, but in the message they chose to send when they could have chosen anything. They could have destroyed. They chose something harder, to draw the line and not step over it. Days pass, then weeks. Zervok officials, what little remained, began peace communications. Slowly, careful not to provoke. Earth responded with clarity, but not weakness. They didn't seek revenge, but they remembered. And the galaxy? It changed. Other species, silent during the war, came forward. Not to challenge Earth, but to ask. How? Why didn't you come forward sooner? What happens now that you've shown who you really are? Earth didn't give them all the answers. Some things stayed buried. Hidden systems remained untouched. The deep factions that had built the survival machine of human resilience stayed out of public view, but representatives went to the council, not to plead, to vote. Humanity joined the Galactic Council not as a junior partner, not as another mouth to feed in the political machine, but as a force that demanded accountability, Records were unsealed. Old peace accords were rewritten, boundary systems redrawn. The Zervok entered a ceasefire agreement that stunned even their own old guard, and Earth's guard, breathtaking Earth, began to rebuild. For humanity, things didn't go back to normal. Too much had been lost. Whole cities were bones in the dirt now. Families broken. Futures rewritten. But the planet had won something few ever had in the face of extinction. A second chance, high above the equator. The Quiet Ends capsule was preserved. Not destroyed. Not hidden. A monument now. Humans called it the last word. Schools on Earth didn't use it as a symbol of threat or power. They taught it as a moment of choice, the choice not to do what everyone expected, because power without purpose is just fear, and Earth didn't come for fear. They came for peace, but only after proving they'd fight. Harder than anyone ever had to earn it, at the edge of Earth's newly forged orbital defenses. A young cadet stood looking out into space, his uniform new, boots too clean, eyes scanning stars he'd never once thought unreachable. He turned to his instructor. "Do you think they'll come back?" The older woman didn't answer right away. She just looked out at the ancient night, the quiet hum of Earth's shield grid whispering reassurance. "If they do," she said, "they'll find we're still here." Then after a beat, and this time, they'll think twice. Earth remained what it always had been, imperfect, resilient, messy. But now, the galaxy knew humanity wasn't the fragile species crawling toward the stars. They were the storm that walked quietly until someone gave them a reason not to, and now they had their galaxy.